Shalom, Shalom, when the start of souls, but giving no praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Makakadash, double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and honors to brothers doing work the most on truth and in sincerity. Yahweh, that's the raw name of whom the world ignorantly calls God. Jehovah Yahweh, his raw name is Yahweh, and his son's true name is Yahweh Shai. And when we pray Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba meaning in, Ha meaning the, Sham meaning name. So this one is basically inspired off, what's been being spoken of in the spirit recently of, the Israelite foreigners. And, I'm just going to give, my personal take on it, especially growing up in the part of London that we did. Right, and I've not been to the States. I've only heard stories about the States. But from what I've heard, in contrast to over here, like let's say you had, say, Tottenham, that was like 2-3 miles away from, which Tottenham was predominantly, West African, and then Caribbean, stronghold. 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 miles down the road, you've got Green Lanes, which is a majority Turkish, stronghold, if you will. And then London is just like that in general. You have a lot of mixing of places nearby. Now, as such, the spirits had it whereby I've grown up with Bengalis, Albanians, Lithuanians. And the way them Lithuanians, is one geezer that I know, is good at that ball, man, right? He'll dunk on me any day, right? And then what else? Yeah. So I said, yeah, people from Azerbaijan, people from from all over the world, quite literally, Eritrea, whatever, what have you, right? Grow with literally everyone, not everyone, but grow with a lot of people from all over the world. Ironically, not a lot of straight up Northern Kingdom. We only really had like, your Colombians and stuff over here, so-called Colombians and stuff near the area that I grew up, right? So as such, spirits had it whereby, over the years, I remember one day sitting with one of the brothers, in the camp, and I was like, yo, is so and so, you think so and so is a Jake? And I was like, yeah, in fact, yeah, it has to be. And I'm like, but what about so and so? Yeah, no, he has to be too. And we named a third person. He was like, right, they were all just straight up Jakes, right? Whether it was a Mauritian, whether it was an Albanian, whether it was a whether it was a Bengali, right? All of this basically, I'm saying all of that to say this is that, look, man, there are a lot of Jakes out there. Right, and this is backed up in the scriptures, Hosea 1:10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, right? And this isn't literally like because there's innumerable amount of sand in the sea, but it's basically saying there's going to be a hell of a lot of Israelites. That's basically what this is saying, right? Which cannot be measured nor numbered, and it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living power. Right, and you're starting to see that now, where people are saying that, starting off the apostle and down, all of these men that are coming out and saying, no, actually, we're the Israelites, we are the Israelites. But even as I'm, putting this lesson together now, I'm even thinking about, you gonna have certain Israelite foreigners that are gonna be like, hey, I'm an Israelite, and then you have other so-called Israelites that are like, no, you ain't. Right, but the Lord is gonna make it known, or in the last days, right? Because at the end of the day, this whole thing of ours is a spiritual thing, right? That's why French scriptures say this, right? Romans 8:16. For the spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. So it's through the Spirit, right, wherein wherein we are able to see what not see all the time, because once again you get certain Jakes, right? Once again I've got spirits had it whereby I personally have testimonies of this. Right, I remember meeting a company that I work for, to the typical founder co-founder type relationship, I met the the majority, and then he's basically around him. When I first met him, I was like, yo, this is straight up heathen, man. Right, and then would you call then his the other co-founder, was one of them, them cocky white jakes, right, so called, is one of them, and he was very much, I was like, yo, this must be a jake. But then the spirit had it whereby I met, for instance, the first guy I met, his father. Now his father was just a straight up Jake. His father was a straight, and you once again, you get them, you get them Israelite foreigners that you look at and you're like, man, that's just a nigga. His dad was just straight up nigga, and I got confused to the end where I was like, yo, is my man adopted? Did his mom cheat or whatever, what have you? I was so confused, right? Then in two twos, right, I met the other one's younger brother, right, and then I was like, raw. Are you two related? Because they behave differently, right? They behave completely differently, but over a process of time, right? I was able to see that actually they were all Jakes, right? Just one was very, over here, there's a term that I use every now and then. You get quote Edomized Jakes, i.e., Jakes that have grown up around Edom, so then they just, become an act like them. Right, let me get a infamous picture of brothers over here in the UK. Will understand and know what I'm talking about. Right now, you had this individual here, Brian. Right, I mean, when you look at it, man, you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, even just looking at these pictures, I'm like, what's my mind on? What is this guy? Right? Is he Ham? Is he Jake? Is he Edom? Like, but once again, the fact that I'm like, yo, is it even an Edomite or something? Is because he's been around them for so much that he's picked up their mannerisms, picked up their dress sense, picked up, what I mean, you time you we look at that, man, you know. But like I said, I don't remember too much about him. But that is an example of an individual that has grown up in another setting where you would be confused as to what they were. Now, if you was say quote unquote white, if you will, well, there'll be no questions. Oh, he's such and such, right? He's a E, he's a that, he's a whatever, what have you. Right, but it's only because he's got a darker hue that we're more likely to be like, yo, hey, he might be X, he might be this, that, and the other, right? The point, once again, coming back to it's a spiritual thing, right? The spirit, Romans 8:16 again, the spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High, right? And yeah, look, man, hey, Jake is doing what they were doing, and now let me get that. Jake's doing today what they were doing back in the back in these past kingdoms, man. What am I looking for? This is Ecclesiastes 3:15. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been, and the most I require of that which is past. So I get this because of this concept of reincarnation, things happening over and over again. Now, just like how in this world you got Jakes that be getting all up in them, Edomite women, and in these times you get Jake. They'll go to to Japan or one of them places there, and they'll be getting all up in them Japanese women. I know an individual. He went over there. He breeded up one Japanese abroad out there now. Once again, he's living out there. So imagine a world where this was say 30 or 40 years ago, right, when he went out there. Guess what would have happened? His child will be a certain age, right, and then they would have more than likely stayed there, if they didn't, whatever. But the point is, if they stayed there, then what would they have done? Would have looked around, said, oh, a lot of Japanese women around, so guess who they would have got with? Someone that was a Japanese also, so called, which biblically they're known as the Ammonites. Okay, so they would have been there, and then after like 2 or 3 generations, right, you would have ended up in a situation where from that, because this guy, hey, once again, he was another one that looked like a Hamite. This individual that I'm thinking of, right, he looked like a Hamite, However, this Jake was way too talented to have been a Hamite. Right, could play any, not say any, he could have played a multitude of instruments, right? Could do things on instruments that, were very difficult to do for the average Joe, right? So the conclusion was, yo, this had to be a straight up Jake, man. Okay. I'll give you another example. Let me put it up. Now, this is an English footballer by the name of Jesse Lingard. So that's him with his mom's there. That's his mom's. Um, and that's him with his daughter. Right now, you remove him out the frame, and you might be like, your first impression, it looks like any typical Edomite baby, whatever, what have you, right? But that's from this man his loins, right? And once again, let's say this was his son now, and then let's say this was 20 years ago, and he grew up around, what do you call it, around, in certain parts of England where it's just majority so-called white women. Guess what would that happen? You would end up someone that just looks straight up like a so-called white man, right? And that's just what it is. It's the things that were happening now were happening back then. So imagine, it's not 20 years now, but you're talking 300 years, 400 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, right? Where Jake has just been going around, dropping their nuts in women of these heathen nations that they were round about, right? Because once again, you don't go to war with your women. Okay, you don't go to war with your women. So when you've arrived at a location, you've just pillaged, a particular town, right? You just go and sleep with the women that are there, right? Or rather, let me rephrase: you ain't supposed to be going to war with your women, right? Jake started going off, right? It's Isaiah 11:11. Right, it says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. Where it's basically from all of these different places and ultimately from the four corners of the earth. The Lord is going to make it such that he's going to get Israelites from all over those places. Why? Because we're scattered. Right, we are literally scattered everywhere, right? Says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth, right? Once again, you're going to have the Israelites that are scattered from all over the world, and they're going to come back, and the beautiful thing is, as the apostles brought out, look, man, they ain't gonna look like the way they look right now. They're gonna be changed, just like how we're all gonna be changed. Okay. So Second Corinthians 15. 1 Corinthians 15:52 says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trump shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Right. So we all need to be changed. Right. All of everything that we have, in this flesh. This flesh is has issues, man, has problems, right? Has ailments. Ultimately those ailments are punishments for the things that we have done in our past lives. Okay, now and in this life, right? And by one of the things that certain brothers have to go through is the fact that they look like heathens, man. Right? That's just their lot for in this time. But guess what? Right, the Lord is gonna, the Lord is gonna give them a new body. Right, so brothers might look like Edomites now. You're in the kingdom, right? Even before then, and at that twinkling of an eye, when they get changed, bro, they gonna be looking, how Israelite look, so that they ain't gonna be none of this. Oh, but you're this complexion, or you have this kind of a bodily feature. Because at the end of the day, that's carnal, right? That is carnal, and for that particular brother, that's just a test of his faith. Okay, and that's just a hurdle certain people just have to get over. Hey, I'll be honest, I had to get over it. Because once again, where I'm originally from, the country of birth that I'm from, it ain't on the 12 tribe sign. And I was, hey, but how can my dad and his dad and his dad's dad all the way back, go back to Israel? Once again, thinking carnally, right? It's all about the spirit and, the thing that the Most High is able to do, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I said it was more like a testimony type of thing or whatever. Have just from my experiences personally. You got a lot of Jakes out there. You got a hell of a lot of Jakes out there that don't look like Jakes. That will, hey, you might be certain they're a heathen, right? And then one day they just do something. You're like, yo, nah, that ain't no heathenistic act, right? No heathen can do that, and then they do it again. Hey, because sometimes I saw this with one of the guys I work with, right? He was all up in the show. I was like, man, that's a heathen, right? But soon, something in his personal life changed, right? And his spirit just came out, and I was just there like, raw. It's one of them ones where I'm like, I'm still on the fence. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm not on the fence about this individual. But I was just there like, right, okay, yeah, yeah, maybe you ain't as straight up Edomite like I thought you were. But that's why it comes down to, what you call it, letting the angels do the job, right? Um, you know, uh, 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 This is Matthew 25:31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth the sheep from the goats, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left, right? Because ultimately, and that's what you also get the parable of the wheat and the tares. Right, the wheat and the tares are you know are basically, so the tares are basically, because Esau's done the same thing. He's gone up into Jake women. Think about the times of slavery. So you're gonna have certain dark skinned people that are really Edomites. They might have the look of a Jake, whatever that is, right? Might have that, have that look, right? But they're really Edomites, okay? But ultimately, it's going to be a spiritual thing that's going to do the separating, okay? So as always, Lord's will, that was edifying. Until the next time we say shalom.